All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to what old school Baltimore calls Green Spring Middle School. Thank you, and thank you all for joining us this morning. Before I begin, I want to recognize those who have joined us this morning. Deputy Mayor Faith Leach, Irene Augustine, the Director of the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, our Chief Recovery Officer, Sir Shemaiah Kearney, Mark Council, who's going to be joining us, lead organizers for Housing Our Neighbors and member of the Live Experience Advisory Committee for Baltimore's Continuum of Care. And just also really want to uplift again what we have done with ARPA funds so far in Baltimore. We know we're going to have $70 million going towards the continued navigation of the COVID-19 pandemic, $50 million towards violence prevention efforts, a combined $55 million towards workforce development and economic recovery, and $35 million towards ending the digital divide here in Baltimore. But there is a third public health crisis that we have yet to touch on, that we will touch on today, and that's homelessness and housing instability. We are here today because the COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare many of the challenges our residents face and exacerbated short and long-term housing loss in our communities. I want to thank the Continuum of Care, Housing Our Neighbors, Healthcare for the Homeless, Homeless Persons Representation Project, and so many others for continuing to advocate for the well-being of our residents and holding us in my administration accountable. We can no longer allow our most vulnerable residents to remain unhoused. If we are going to follow through on our commitments to our residents and make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring, we have to make more dollars available for people experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity to access essential housing. And today, we are going to take a significant step in the realization of that goal. We are announcing a combined $90.4 million to support the city's long and short-term responses to homelessness. This is the largest investment into homeless support services that Baltimore has ever seen. This is putting this money to great and good use, taking the lessons learned from our COVID-19 emergency strategy to implement an effective and sustainable model to address homelessness here in Baltimore City. The first chunk of that $90.4 million is $75 million from the city's American Rescue Plan dollars, which will go towards non-congregate emergency housing for individuals experiencing homelessness, to cover the acquisition of 2 hotels, including renovation and operating support for non-congregate emergency housing, shelter demobilization for COVID-19 non-congregate shelter sites. It includes rental assistance and case management services for individuals who reside in hotels used as shelter decompression sites, housing navigation and landlord recruitment support to reduce the length of time that people experience homelessness in Baltimore, backing the city's Housing Accelerator Fund to increase the supply of permanent supportive housing units in Baltimore, and a flexible fund for diversion and rapid resolution. Combine the homelessness diversion and rapid resolution funds to streamline short-term rental assistance that will prevent people from entering shelters or rapidly help them to exit the shelter. In addition to the city's ARPA investment, HUD's Home Program Awards awarded the City of Baltimore $15.4 million in home ARP funds, which will go towards assisting individuals and or households experiencing homelessness and other vulnerable populations by further increasing housing stability and develop more permanent supportive housing. This investment is about looking at access to housing as a fundamental human right and connecting residents experiencing homelessness to the service and resources that they need to get back on their feet. This is not a handout. This is a hand across and up to help lift our neighbors. I want to be clear that homelessness does not exist in a vacuum or a silo. We can't look at access to housing as a human right without making sure that our city's housing stock is accessible to residents, long-term homeowners, and renters who need that access the most. Today's announcement ties directly into our pillar of pillar goal of equitable neighborhood development and our larger continuum of care in partnership with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We are also making plans to put the city's vacant housing stock to good use as a part of our 30-day vacant property strategy review that we will have back out into the public at the conclusion of that 30-day period. And please stay tuned for another ARPA announcement on housing affordability and our plans to address vacant properties in the coming weeks. Now I want to turn it over to someone who has the most important person that we will hear from today, the lived experience with homelessness, and now has dedicated his life to tackling it here in Baltimore, Mr. Mark Council. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody. My name is Mark Council. I'm lead organizer of Housing Our Neighbors. This is a very important day to sign all 6 of these properties to MOHS. This proposal. We must do this. I have lived on the streets. I have been homeless for a long period of time. I know what it looks like to be homeless. I have lived in vacant buildings, abandoned buildings. And I'd like for everybody to come out here to see what life is really about. Being homeless is like a place that we don't have no say. We don't have no cause. We must end this. These 6 proposals that we must put in MOHS hands, it's a must. This is the one-time history, and this is something that we really need. This is something that people in the homeless population could be well known, be back into civilization. The people that's here help build Baltimore City, help put Baltimore City on the map. We definitely need this. In the country living, the shelters, as far as the COVID-19, it can't be like this. We cannot be safe in the country living shelters. We must stop this. The city has the resource, the city has houses. It's the money. They have the money. And I'm hoping that it'll be used in the right direction to save our lives. That's what I'm here for, to save our neighbors. We must stop this. This is a must. The saving our lives for COVID, everybody know that they have all these shots, the masks. The only effective way that we can do this is to stay 6 feet apart. You cannot do that in the conjugate living, especially if you have something like 300-400 some more people in one place. We must save lives, and this is the day that we can do this. This is something that is really important to us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for being here and sharing that with us. We know what this investment means for our city, for our residents, and for our communities, and we know that we have to and can and will do and be better. Now I want to turn it over to our director of the Office of Homeless Services, who has been doing great work in the city since she arrived last year, and we look forward to, through this investment and other work that we're going to be doing, expanding that partnership. Madam Director.
Good morning. I'm Irene Augustin, the Director of the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. Thank you, Mayor Scott, for the opportunity to serve the City of Baltimore. I am truly honored to be a part of this momentous occasion and to announce this $90 million investment in ending homelessness in the City of Baltimore. The impacts of COVID-19 have had profound effects on all our lives. We have or know someone that has fallen ill or have passed away. For some, the economic impacts have led to loss of income, living paycheck to paycheck, and losing their home. At the start of the pandemic, the city moved swiftly to decompress congregate shelters and reduce the spread of the virus among our most vulnerable community members. This action, without a doubt, saved lives. However, we are at a turning point, and I believe that COVID-19 has demonstrated not only our resilience, but also a sign that as a community and as a nation, we have to do things differently. Providing stable, permanent housing provides the most effective means to prevent and mitigate the spread of COVID-19 among people experiencing homelessness, while also providing a platform to other positive health, educational, and economic outcomes that make maintaining housing easier. Housing ends homelessness. And this federal funding is a catalyst needed to transform the homeless response system in Baltimore City. Mayor Scott's directive was clear. Community engagement needed to be at the center of our investment for American Rescue Plan funding. Through the assistance of national consultants, MOHS was tasked to create a strategic investment plan that in its foundation had intentional community engagement and the voices of people of lived experiences. The consultants reviewed current processes and investments, facilitated listening sessions, and administered surveys to organize the information. A core leadership team was developed and comprised of 14 community stakeholders representing city departments, the continuum of care, nonprofit organizations, philanthropy, and people with lived experiences, whose task was to review this information and prioritize activities of the strategic investment plan. This plan serves as a roadmap for areas within our system that need critical investment. MOHS American Rescue Plan proposals to the Office of Recovery Programs were guided by our work on the strategic investment plan and ensured the sustainability of these initiatives beyond this one-time investment. This investment impacts critical points within our homelessness response system, and we work hard to balance the need of emergency services with the need for access to safe and affordable housing. The combined investment of the American Rescue Plan and Home Art Funds support establishing non-congregate emergency housing through the acquisition of hotels to replace 275 congregate shelter beds. Second, as shelter decompression sites are demobilized, rehousing assistance will be provided to individuals and families, and funds will support rental assistance and case management. Third, ending homelessness requires access to safe and affordable housing, and a portion of these funds will go to increase housing navigation and support strategies to recruit and engage landlords. Fourth, in partnership with the Department of Community and Housing Development, a housing accelerator fund will be established to increase the supply of permanent supportive housing. And lastly, a flexible fund will be created to provide short-term assistance that will prevent people from entering shelter and assist in rapidly exiting them from shelter. Homelessness is a crisis situation. It does not define who people are. These investments are focused on helping people get through their housing crisis. And we need to get them through their housing crisis quickly so that they can continue to rebuild their lives and thrive. The longer someone experiences homelessness, the harder it is to access housing, and that's where hope and despair can set in. It takes bravery to ask for help and to face these challenges. But our system, one way or another, failed our most vulnerable men, women, and children, and it's time to change that now. Homelessness is a solvable problem, but that doesn't mean it's not without hard work and challenges. We also have to force ourselves to take a critical look at our community and to make sure we have the resources or funding to be successful. Ending homelessness is more than moving someone into a house. It is making that house into a home and having neighbors and a community that support one another. In closing, I would like to thank the Mayor's Office of Recovery Programs for reviewing, helping us to refine our proposals, and awarding MOHS this funding. ARPA funding will improve Baltimore City's homelessness response system and change the lives of so many people. Thank you to all the people with lived experiences of homelessness and the advocates that have partnered with us to hold us accountable. And lastly, thank you to the continuum of care, our providers, and to my MOHS team for your hard work and dedication. Together, we will make a profound difference in Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for your great work. Now we will take questions. Sir?
Question on mask mandates, especially with other jurisdictions, notably Montgomery County lifting theirs last night. I know ours is tied, or the city's is tied with the CDC transmission level, but there are a lot of inconsistencies. The CDC website lists us as substantial. Our city dashboard says we're high, but the numbers perhaps suggest we're either low or moderate. What would you say to citizens who, with regard to timeline and what you're looking at?
Yeah, we'll be making a decision on that soon, but the most important thing that I would say is that our positivity rate is lower than everyone else's, right? And we've been through this multiple times before, and we've seen what has happened, and the reason why our city has been looked at as a national leader for how we have dealt with COVID is that we have made sure that we have followed every single thing to the T. I can bet that you will hear from me and Dr. D in the very near future about mask mandates and other things COVID related, but we are not there yet. I will be meeting with her tomorrow to discuss.
By way of days?
By way of between now and the next time you see me and Dr. D together. Emily? Only one Emily today, so
Just
not
one.
squared.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Landlord recruitment support. Can you explain exactly what that is and why it's needed?
Well, I will let the director explain it in a much more eloquent way that I will ever will be able to do. Madam Director.
Short. So when we think about homeless services, a lot of times we think of the person needing shelter. But really what ends homelessness is housing. And so a lot of times when we talk about it, we don't talk about the housing community and how they participate in this. Landlords play a role in that. They have available units that need to be rented, and that's a great way for them to partner with the work that we're doing at the city and with homeless services. We can help provide the rental assistance, but we need safe, affordable housing to get people to move into, and so that's why it's important to have landlords at the table with this.
Got it. And for the flexible fund, how will assistance be calculated? Who will be eligible? And how long can someone receive that support for example, 6 months, 12 months?
So flexible fund is exactly what it is. It's to help people either not have to go into shelter because we can keep them in housing, or it is that they're in shelter and we can get them out of shelter into housing as quickly as possible. Flexible fund could be some short-term rental assistance, or it could be, you know, helping someone to reunite with their family. But what we want to do is make sure that we're not clogging up our shelter system and getting people into permanent housing as quickly as possible. We will be working with the continuum of care and our providers to come up with more details in terms of how this needs to work within our community. But again, human needs evolve. And so it's important that as we look at what is needed to help people get into housing, is that we take a serious look at what those needs are and to make sure that we meet that need.
Thank you.
Alexa?
Hello. At least 100 people have been shot in the city so far this year. We're about 50 days into the new year. You're using more American Rescue Plan dollars to address homelessness rather than public safety. Would you explain that decision given the violence?
Well, I think that what you should understand is that we put $50 million into this, and Alexa, but also remember, our police department has a $500 million budget. So when you're talking about comparison of what the city is spending its money on between public safety and homelessness is a part of public safety, because if people are out there exposed on the streets and don't have adequate housing, they're more at risk to be victims of all kind of crime. So we have to have a better understanding of how it is to be human. We have to have a better understanding of what public safety truly is, and not just in the quintessential Sinclair immediate action thing. We will not act like homelessness is not a serious issue in our city. And we are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on public safety, and will continue to do so. We will continue to focus this. We will continue to focus in every way. Our police department has made over 200 gun arrests this year. Our clearance rates for homicides are at 54%. That's higher than it was last year, which was a 6% increase. As you heard, you were with me, the governor, the U.S. Marshals, about the partnerships that we have each and every day. That wasn't a one-time thing. We're going to continue to be focused here, but know that more money is being spent on public safety than anything else. Lisa?
Yes, could someone explain how this hotel acquisition thing will work? How many hotels? What are the hotels? And is that for people to live in permanently, or how long?
So there's a process, and I'll let the director go through what happens at the hotels. There'll be a process when we issued out a request that we were interested in hotels. We're not going to talk about that publicly because we want to make sure that the city and our taxpayers are getting their money's being spent wisely. So we'll have a process that we'll go through there, Lisa. But I will let the director talk to you about what happens at a facility like that. As you know, we ran a great facility throughout COVID at the Lord Baltimore that has been wonderful.
So, in response to your question regarding the hotels for acquisition, so in Baltimore City, we had 2 congregate shelters that were in temporary locations. And so in order to make sure that we're able to have the appropriate level of shelter bed space within our community, we're looking at replacing those beds in those temporary locations with identifying permanent settings for non-congregate shelter. We learned in response to COVID that congregate is not the safest way to have people in shelter during public health crisis. So non-congregate shelter is a best practice that we're seeing throughout the nation, and we know this is going to be a intervention that's going to work within the city of Baltimore. Like the mayor said, we do have to go through a process because we want to make sure that we're good stewards of the funding that we do receive, and that when we set this up, that we set this to serve the purpose of helping people temporarily to be safe as they're experiencing homelessness. But our goal is to get them connected to housing as quickly as possible. This is not permanent housing. This is interim housing, and I want to make sure that's very clear within the community.
Thank you.
Mackenzie, I see you got the light shirt memo today.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Given the recent statements in the latest court filings from Marilyn Mosby, from City Council President Nick Mosby, and talking about his financial missteps in the past, are you confident that he can continue to successfully lead the city's spending board and remain a City Council President?
Listen, Mackenzie, you know what you're going to get from me on this. There is a legal process in this country that we all follow, and we're going to follow that process. You know that we're going to do that each and every day. That spending board actually has 3, me and 2 of my appointees on it. I am not worried about the Board of Estimates and whether we're going to continue on with our work. And what is happening with the council president will take place in court in due time, and you should ask the U.S. Attorney's Office about that.
Do you still have confidence in his ability to maintain his job? His position over leading the Board of Estimates,
I think
leading
that
the City Council.
Again, you're going to get the same response. There's a legal process in this country. People are innocent until proven guilty, and we will continue to operate the Board of Estimates to make sure that we are doing whatever we can do to move the city forward. That board is bigger than one person. It has me, the comptroller, our city solicitor on it, our Department of Public Works director on it. All of us will continue to make sure that the board moves forward. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.